Hey, welcome back to the podcast, The Food You Thought. On today's episode, it's a special episode because I got a request from one of my friends. It's gonna be about the moon landing conspiracy theories. Now I know everybody thought it was real, but there's some speculations out there that it might be fake. Now let's take a deep dive into the speculations. We got a couple theories that I've looked up on this website. We will go through it, and then at the end we'll see what we got. First theory: the shadows in the moon landing photos were proved the images are fake. Taking a look at the image below and at the full panorama of the NASA website, look closely at the shadows cast by astronaut Neil Armstrong and other objects just out of the shot. What is wrong with them? I will put a picture up of the image here so we all can take a look at it. They're not parallel. This image has been taken as proof of by conspiracy theories that the moon landings were fake. Surely, if the sun were the only light source, then the shadows should be parallel. Doesn't this prove that the whole scene was mocked up in a studio with multiple light sources creating different shadows patterns? Well, no. This is on the surface of the moon that we can reproduce this effect anytime we want on the Earth. Professor Oha explains, you will all see this phenomenon yourself, where because of perspective, parallel lines appear to be non-parallel. If you are trying to reduce onto a two-dimensional plane, a three-dimensional situation, you can make lines do all sorts of weird things. Artists have been using this for centuries. Go outside when the sun is low in the sky and see this effect for yourself. Just like the images from Apollo 11, the shadows will not be parallel. Shadows on other worlds. There should be a video. If you can't see it, please accept. Okay. That was a mistake. Conspiracy 2 we are. Apollo astronauts could not have survived Earth's radiation field. Earth is surrounded by a zone of charged particles known as the Van Allen radiation belt. These regions surrounding the Earth in our magnetic field where high energy trapped particles from the sun tend to get confirmed, Professor Oha says. What is mean is if you are going into these regions, they're extremely high radiation concerns. There should be a video, again, I will link it. In this case, how did the Apollo astronauts travel through the Van Allen radiation belt and out of orbit unharmed? Surely the amount of radiation should have killed them. Doesn't this prove that the moon landings were a hoax? Professor Sellers has a killer reply. My answer to that firewalking, he says, if you ever done firewalking, you'll know that the one thing you don't do is linger around the middle of the fire pit. You'll crawl as quickly as you can. From a science point of view, as long as you walk across quite quickly, looking at the conductivity of your feet, you are going to have enough thermal energy going to the soles of your feet to burn you. You are absolutely fine just hanging around in the middle. In the same similar way, the transit time through the Van Allen radiation belt right at the beginning of the Apollo voyages were incredibly short. Traveling through the Van Allen radiation belt, if you were going fast enough, which you would need to be if you're going to the moon, is no problem whatsoever. That conspiracy theory has been debunked. That was number 2. Our third one is, why are there no stars in the picture of the NASA moon landing? Here is another moon landing photograph which has caught conspiracy theorists' eyes. It is a Buzz Aldrin carrying equipment during the Apollo 11 moon landing. I'll put it in the video in the corner. If the image is really taken on the moon, shouldn't the sky be filled with stars? After all, there is no atmosphere to distort the image, no clouds to interrupt the glorious view. Conspiracy theories argue that the lack of stars in the Apollo 11 mission photographs prove that the event was staged. NASA could have not faked the full wonder of the lunar sky, and so they simply chose not to include any stars at all. Here's another solution. Both the astronauts and the lunar landscape itself are bright lit by the sun. The sky may look black, but remember, this is in fact daytime on the moon. If you are going to take a photo of a brightly lit scene, your camera shutter speed needs to be fast enough and your aperture incredibly small. In that situation, faint objects like stars simply are not going to show up. That conspiracy theory has been debunked too. On to conspiracy theory number 4. And I'll put in the conspiracy theory number in order and the title of it so we all don't get confused. One of the conspiracy theory number 4, the Apollo 11 U.S. flag is waving in the wind, but there is no wind on the moon. On one of the crowning moments in terms of the U.S. national pride was seeing the stars and stripes on the surface of the moon, Professor Oha says. In this image, Buzz Aldrin salutes the American U.S. flag during the Apollo 11 moon landing. Buzz Aldrin saluting the proudly waving American flag on the moon remains one of the iconic images of the Apollo 11 mission, a declaration of U.S. supremacy over space race rivals, the Soviet Union. But if there's no atmosphere on the moon, there is no wind. So why is the flag waving? Look again at the image, and in particular along the top edge of the flag, and you will find the answer. And a telescope pole has been extended along the top in order to make the flag fly proudly. Yes, NASA really did think of everything. Because it's been set up like this, it appears to be waving in the wind, Aha says. All the wrinkles there because it's literally been screwed up for 4 days en route to the moon. This conspiracy theory has been debunked also. Conspiracy theory number 5. Let's see if this one gets debunked. If we really went to the moon in 1969, why have we never been back? Apollo 17, the last Apollo mission to land astronauts on the moon, took place in 1972. Since then, humans have never returned. Maybe that's because we never went to the moon in the first place. Apollo 17 wasn't meant to be the end of the story, of course. Throughout the 1970s, there were ambitious to establish a permanent lunar base before turning to the next major space exploration challenge, Mars. It never happened, but this was no grand conspiracy. This was geopolitics. The answer is we changed our priorities, Professor Oha says, from a combination of the Vietnam War, but also there was this geopolitic element of thinking. We've won the race. Just as soon as we got good at doing science on the moon, we abandoned it. Instead, attention turned to the Space Shuttle program and Lattery, the International Space Station, which has been permanently inhabited by teams of astronauts since November 2000. But that doesn't mean humans couldn't return to the moon in the future. That conspiracy theory has been debunked. Now getting towards the end of this, Apollo 11, 50 years on, leaving our mark on the moon. The moon landings were not a hoax. Apollo 11 did happen. Humans really did set foot on the moon. We have countless images, videos, lunar samples, and scientific data to prove it. But more than that, human exploration has literally left its mark on the moon's surface. In 2009, we sent a lunar Renaissance orbiter to map the lunar surface in 3 or 4 orders of magnitude more resolution that hadn't been ever imagined before, Professor Hoa says. Every single Apollo landing site was pictured, absolutely stunning. What really strikes me about these images is that those footprints, those tracks of the lunar vehicles, they're going to maintain their integrity for millions of years, he says. No matter what we do to ourselves as civilizations, we really left our mark on the cosmos. Now, I'll get into the end of these conspiracy theories. Do I believe we landed on the moon? If there's videos and things, I believe, but I also could believe that the government might be hiding it. What is your opinion on this? All right, it's been your host, Ray, and we have a next episode. Tune in for Friday's episode with a new speaker. Thank you, and it's been the Fukyu Dot.